Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to probably the last episode of the year of the breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the pugilist boy, who is not here just yet, but he is on his way. We are the children of the game. I figured I didn't want people to be waiting around, hanging around, wondering what's going on. You know, we've kind of got a bit of a bad rep for that, so it was time to kind of start on time. I would have literally clicked the button a couple minutes ago, but I figured let me come in, interact with the people a little bit, chop it up, see who's about, and then kind of we can get into this weekend's action as soon as Tony hits the stage. But big up to King Fats 95 is in the chat. Big up Base and Tony. Hope you all had a good weekend. Can't wait. I appreciate that. Fight Fan TV Live. Danny, persistence beats resistance. I think you need to put that on the t-shirt, you know. I mean, I don't know if you made up that quote. So, you know, I don't want to get you any copyright plagiarism, you know, lawsuits or whatever, but put it on a t-shirt. I'll buy one from you. Put mine on the back. Declan, bless up. Jay Lanks, I see you, and Dan the man, hardest working guy on Twitter. Yo, find out who Man United are going to be looking for in the transfer window. I need some strong tips. Okay, so they're saying it's his quote. All right, cool. Say nothing. Put it on the t-shirt. Like I said, I'll wear it. I'll put it on the channel. I mean, you'll probably get more views on your channel than mine, but yeah. Hey, are we back? Are we good? Sorry, little malfunction right there. Reece Jones, big up. Right, so I've got a quick question for everyone. Before we get started, what was your fight of the year? So not the best fighter, not the performance of the year, not the prospect or whatever. Like, what was your best fight? One fight only. Put it in the chat. Let's see what we got. How many people we got? 18 people watching. What's the like saying? Let me go to the old YouTubes and find out how many people have liked the vid so far. All right, there's 18 people in there. I only see 5 likes. Come on, guys. We can do better than that. Roots first, big up to you. You guys taking a little bit of time with your top fight. Is it that difficult? Don't get me wrong, there were some good ones, and there's no judgment here. So this is what you like, in it. Your number one fight, whether that was based on entertainment, whether it was based on skill levels, like high IQ boxing, whether it was hit and not get hit, you know, whatever you like, or whether it was just because it was a big slugfest, or it was, you know, like a big spectacle type fight, whatever. Like, what was your fight of the year? All right, so Dan the man's got Taylor versus Serrano. That's definitely a top contender. Reece Jones has got Wood versus Conlon. I think those two are kind of dead certs in everyone's top 5s this year. Who's this? Usman Mahmood, big up to you. You said Lubin versus Fondora. You know, that was a great fight. I mean, it's mad. You look at Lubin's face and you would think that he was not in that fight at all, but that was a very competitive fight. Roots first also says Conlon versus Wood. Yep. Like I said, there's no wrong answers, but all of these are definitely contenders. I mean, Lubin versus Fondora probably doesn't get enough of a credit in terms of how fun it was to watch. But yeah, the other two most definitely. What about you, Fight Fam? What have you got? Okay, Usman Mahmoud come back with Guerfi versus Gill. That was a very good fight. I was in attendance for that. I still remember that DDT like it was yesterday. I think I might still have the footage on my phone. I'll have to check. See what else have we got. Okay. Paul versus Woodley 2. James Burrell, big up to you. Thank you for watching. Tony's in the building. So with that being said, he's getting set up. Let's put this in the right capacity for the moment. Turn her up. Overlay out. There we go. Right, you gotta turn your mic on, Tony.
Mic is on.
Oh, no sound.
Ooh.
Thing is, you're not even muted, so where's your sound gone?
Yeah. Come out and go back in. Hang on.
All right, it's all going off today. He's out. He's coming back in. All right, let's take that off. Let's get back to these comments. It's a good thing he literally jumped in. Then I was literally about to start doing the breakdown by myself. You know. All right, let's hear it now.
Oh.
I still can't hear you.
No way.
Can anyone else hear him, or is it just me that can't? Thought Base was on a one-man band thing. almost Andre. Big up.
Roots, they can hear me.
Oh, everyone else is saying they can hear you, but I can't.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So, Tony, how are you? And what's the reason for the late? Tell the people.
I just ran late in the gym, my last training session with my boys, and yeah, literally just overran slightly. I'm always cutting it close on a Tuesday, with my new session that I've got in. But yeah, apologies to everybody. Great to see you all. I can see the chat is populated nicely already. Wow. We've got big up King Fats. Have you done the roll call?
Yeah, I've done the roll call. Big up MC Tasty as well. As I said, we got that. So we're ready to rock and roll.
Persistence beats resistance, indeed.
So since you did the honors of populating the list and everything today, you can take it away with where you want to go.
All right.
You can lead, and I will follow on this occasion.
Don't get used. All right. Well, let's start on the bill in Bournemouth, the boxer bill, and we'll start with Caroline Dubois. Wow. Do you want to talk me through this? Because this is just explosive, and the superlatives just going to ring off the tongue, I'm sure.
Okay. All right, I'll go.
There you go.
Okay, so we had Sweet Caroline Dubois in her 5th fight of the year, which was it's a good achievement. A lot of days the prospects don't really be getting out sort of as often as they should. But the first thing about Caroline with regards to this was that she came out like she was confident from the first moment. From you heard the ring walk music playing, that Eve, that Who's That Girl, I was like, okay, she come for business. And even in the fight, you can see everything she's doing is controlled. Yeah, there's times where maybe she's throwing a lot into a punch that she didn't need to, but as she said, she felt that the girl was responding to the shots from early, so she thought, let me test her. And even there you can see how, if you can see on that shot just gone, she hit the shot, rolled under, and then used her glove to stop the other girl from being able to fire back on her. As there, she just did a little bull and matador, jabbing through the guard. You know, that left hook through the guard twice. Girl's got her hands up now. She's punching through the guard, straight punches. hooks to the body, making sure those arms drop down to the side of the head. Like, it's just vicious work. I really, really, really like watching Caroline Dubois. And you can tell now that she's very much a confident fighter. It's not just about, like, I'm happy to be here, I'm Daniel's little brother. Like, she's now it's not even she's Daniel's little sister. Like literally Daniel's her older brother. That's how the hierarchy of that family is moving at the moment. She seems to have garnered the sort of the hearts, and people like the fact she's just genuine in everything that she does. Like, when she's in the ring, she's spiteful, but outside of the ring, like, there's no airs and graces. She doesn't put on a facade. Like, you can just kind of tell that's her. And the fact that her confidence is coming out, so she's able to speak and engage with people a bit more, is only going to lead her in good stead. I see a lot of good things in that future. And Tony knows I love a spiteful southpaw. So, you know what I mean? It's all good. Yeah, Starlord, I had to correct myself quickly on that one. But thank you for highlighting it. Go ahead, Tony.
So I can't really add anything more to you. And in the essence of keeping it short and sweet, I resonate everything you said. It's just great to see her going to work, because we know it's going to be all action. It's going to be dynamite punching. It's going to be great shot selection and good head movement. All the things that we want in a fighter at this stage in her career. I can say nothing against what she's done. So 2023, I hope she continues on that very fast track up to the elite levels. I did, at the end of that video, put in the top 20, was it?
Yeah.
The top 20, where she's just hovering at 20 on the BoxRec ratings. Of course, she's got higher rankings in other Alphabet Gang ratings, but of course, the BoxRec gives you an idea of where she stands universally. So there are still guys up ahead. There are still challenges to meet, but with the work that she's done this year, with the activity that we've seen, I can see nothing but great things coming in 2023. So definitely one to watch.
Have you got anyone that you'd like her to face next year before she starts looking at titles? Or
not off the top of my head, to be honest. I'm literally just gonna say, start moving through that list of 19 to 3 and see how we get on.
Okay. I think I would like her first. I know this won't be the first one because she's already said that they've got something lined up, but I would actually like if she could fight Sofia Ochigava in her next fight. Very dedicated, decorated amateur, Olympic silver medalist, was beaten by Katie Taylor to the title of the Olympics. Been very inactive as a pro. She's only got 6 fights. She turned over actually in 2016, same year as Katie Taylor, but she's only actually got 6 fights. But I think the Olympic pedigree would be a very good barometer for her, and it would definitely give her the rounds, because that's what she needs at the moment. The knockouts are great, and she can still get a knockout, but it would be a later on type situation. So I definitely think that would be a good one for her for next year at some point. Jones has put in the chat, Karen Carabajal, Katie Taylor's most recent opponent. To be honest, I don't think she's ready for Carabajal just yet. There's no need to rush her. And those are the type of people you come unstuck against. I mean, we saw it happen with Sandy Ryan and Erica Farias, like jumping in deep and a bit too soon. It can work for you as well, but there's no need to have a battle that tough just yet, especially when you're still working at the tool set. Make sure you got all the tools first, then you can have your wars, because then that way you've got more reserves to pull from and more stuff to pull out of the kit bag when things ain't going right. But it's a good choice though, otherwise, Reese. All right, next one, Tony, move on.
Right, so the next fight on that same bill, we're going into the co-main, which is Dan Aziz versus Rocky Fielding. So I'll jump in on this one. This one I was very, very much looking forward to. However, we had a bit of drama at the weigh-in. Rocky Fielding weighed in a pound over, and just basically refused to try to even lose it. So his ability to win the Commonwealth title effectively were negated straight away. You're going to see a body shot here that drops Rocky Fielding. This is a wonderful part of Dan's game. He's switching from body and head attack. You know, he very much has a very all-round game in that he's able to move around and select punches to both body and head. Uses some nice footwork here, the body jab, brings the guard down in the stiff jab. That jab was in Rocky Fielding's head, rocking his head all night long. Literally, I mean, it was like Rocky Fielding just didn't have an answer to deal with that ramrod jab. Here it goes again, you know. And then from there, he comes down to the body. He looks around the side. You know, he's finding his opportunity. See that slip round to the side, finds the counter there. Boom, moves round to the middle, the hook, and then uppercuts coming through the outside. Look at that shot selection. Bit worried about that head motion. Of course, he did get spoken to. He didn't receive a warning, but he did get spoken to about the heads. In fact, both were talked about the heads. Now, of course, that's his style of fighting. I want to put my head on your chest and I want to fire away. But at some points, if you're against the wrong kind of opposition or you've got the wrong referee, that head motion can be seen as an intentional head in the head of an opponent. But overall, very impressed. As I said, I like Dan's all-round game. He's not a one-punch KO artist, so he does have to work for his wins. But what he has shown is the ability to show consistent work rate. You know, he doesn't have fast hands. Again, you know, there are guys like Buatsi and Richards who have got faster hands. But what Dan does is he throws his hands at a consistent rate. You know, he to me, he's one of them guys that you could put a clicker on his punch count and just go, right, 60 punches the minute, 60 punches the minute, 60 punches the minute. He's just going to keep working his hands, creating angles, working body and head, and effectively he's looking at war of attrition, which is just in line with his idol, which is Marvin Hagler. So overall, very good performance. The question remains, what does Rocky Fielding have left in the tank? It's a very good name on Dan's resume. It's one that, you know, elevates him into, you know, I think a different plane in the light heavyweight division now, because you're now saying, okay, he's ready. You know, one more belt solidifies the British title. He could easily fight European title level. He's got the Commonwealth. So we're now looking at international titles and, you know, being in amongst those contenders just under the, you know, the top 3 or 4 elite.
Okay. Right. So if you want to just play that video again for me. So one thing that I like about this work from Dan, as you said, extremely consistent is what he does. So you know that if you're in the ring with him, you're gonna have to work. One thing that I saw within this fight, and I'm gonna point it out as soon as it comes up in the next clip. Right. So after the body work, after he throws the hook there, right, you'll see it in the next shot when he's covering. So Dan's here as he pivots off to the side. That same move there, I know exactly where he learned that. He learned that in the double jab gym in New Cross. I know because when I used to go there for fitness every now and again, that was a combination they used to teach you. It was a 1-2 slip to the side and then hook off from the side position. And they teach it to you in the orthodox and the southpaw stance. So seeing him do it there in the ring and it be so effective, that it's amazing that no one else really does that the same in the pros at the moment, especially the people that have been taught from down South London. But yeah, as you said, Tony, that jab was an amazing jab. I feel like his jab is extremely underrated because he's so short. People just don't expect his jab to reach as far as it does. But he just has this knack of always being in range by exploding into his jab each time that he's throwing it. Like he always makes sure that his whole body is moving forward in a motion when the jab is thrown out at its maximum extension. So you don't even have the time to counter it or to slip it, and it just ends up catching you. Like you think, oh yeah, I'm out of range, I'm nowhere near it. Nope, it's there. It's always in your face, and it's not just always the ramrod jab. He's got a good probing one as well. It's like it doesn't probe the same as other people. It's just about finding the target. It's like it's a probe right in front, and then boom, and it's there, and it hits you, and then it makes you reset. Even if it's not the hardest, it just makes you reset what you were thinking, and that allows him to gain his entry on the inside. And as you said, that pendulum motion with the head, with the shoulders, with the tight guard on the inside, just working away. And if you don't have elite range range distance control, you're gonna be in a fight you don't want to be in. There's only certain people that have got a work rate that can stand with someone like Dan, and that's not necessarily even saying they got to be world class or anything, but he would give even some world class fighters problems if they don't have any way to control that distance, or they don't have a gas tank that's able to make them work. Because yeah, his punches may not hurt by themselves, but the accumulation is going to get to you sooner or later, and then your gas tank's going to keep fading, and you're going to be like, is it really worth it? Why am I still here? And that's what Dan does. It's a war of attrition. He just breaks you down and then just makes you just like, okay, you know what, this is long, okay, I give up, leave me alone now. Imagine him being in a fight in the school doing the same thing, maybe even getting punched up in the fight, but he's just there, always there. You're punching, but he's just coming back, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, this is long. All right, let's leave. Yeah, I'm done. I can imagine him being like that in school. So yeah, big up to Dan. It was a good performance. Obviously, we still know that his best performance thus far that we've seen on the main stage was the Jose Burton one. But everyone he's working, he's getting the job done effectively. He doesn't need to be showing the full arsenal. He's not going the full whack. He's having a lot of fights, but he's getting the job done. And I think for him, the activity is what he needs, because I could see him getting rusty if he becomes more inactive. So I definitely think that took place when he only had, I think, the one fight in 2020 or 2019, because he had 6 fights the year before, and then 4 fights. So he's a guy that he works well under the activity. When he's not fighting, it does take him a long time to get back in the groove. He doesn't always look the best. So he said he wanted to get out on the January card. I know Ben Shalom said no, but that would have been good for him, because again, activity, he needs that. But anyway, you going to the okay? So Reece Jones says, I think Lyndon is going to be fighting Callum Smith. Yeah, we've heard that. Obs, bless up. I used to go moonshot on a Saturday morning too. Okay. Declan, his movement close on the inside, I think, is good. Constantly moving on his chest, definitely. James Burrow, it's a lot like Mike Tyson style. Don't know if I wouldn't class it more as Tyson, to be fair. But Tyson was a lot more explosive in the pocket and outside the pocket. But Dan Aziz went Forest Hill Boys, so he'd be a problem in Dog Shit Alley. Yeah, we can't have talks of Dog Shit Alley on we have to leave it alone. There's been many a day and an evening and a night and events that happened in that alleyway. But yes, we will not talk about that on the show. Thank you very much, Dan.
Excellent. Okay, so that leads us on to the main event. Before we go with the main event, is there anything else on the undercard that you remember?
No, I mean, the only thing I would have been speaking about, just for how bad it was Steve Robinson and what was his name? Nick Bull. I think his name was.
Okay.
It's all right, we don't have to talk about that, but that fight was horrible. I can't believe that they've literally got misfits level fights on big prime TV on Sky Sports and Boxer.
That's terrible.
I know a lot of the misfits fights are actually better than that. If you didn't watch that, it's on YouTube now. You can watch that. It was one of the worst things I've seen in a professional boxing ring in the longest. Nick Campbell, thank you very much, Declan. Yeah, that was a horrible experience. But yeah,
Cool. All right, so that leads us to move on to the main event, which was Callum Smith. And for the
no,
life of me, I've been trying. Say it again.
Chris Billam-Smith.
Sorry, Chris Billam-Smith. Sorry. Against. Give me the name.
Armand Jojak.
Jojak.
Yeah.
Jojak. Okay. So you want to go, or do you want me to go?
No, I'll go. I'm happy
Cool.
to go
So
on this
here
one.
you go.
Okay, so Chris Billam-Smith versus Armand Jojak was a surprisingly entertaining fight. I did think it would be a little bit competitive in like the first 2 rounds, but after sort of seeing how Chris came out in the first, which I actually gave him the first round to be fair, but Jojak definitely stepped up the pace in the second. Armand was definitely on Chris, but what he done instead of sort of taking his time and trying to probe his way in after hurting Chris in that second round, he went a bit headhunty, and he sort of jumped in and started to smother his own work and allowed Chris Billam-Smith to do what he does best, which is to get up close and just tie you up and take his breaks and just lean on you and gas you out. But then ultimately we see this from the 5th round, arguably has to be contender for knockout of the year. It's a late one, so not say it may not get the same contention as others, but just the way that he threw those punches, especially the fact that just before those punches went in, he started going to the body to bring down Jojak's arms just a little bit, so that the left hook and the right hook could come in, so that he could then throw the left hook that fainted him, and then that right uppercut. It was a very great. It was almost a it almost felt a bit Povetkin-esque, like not in terms of technique, not in terms of the way how it was set up, but just in terms of the impact and what it did to the person in the ring. It felt like it just had that kind of move in it, and almost to the point where you thought in that fight with Povetkin and White, you thought, oh well, Dillian White, he's comfortable, he's winning this easy, but Povetkin was setting things up throughout the fight, setting things up. And Chris Billam-Smith was kind of doing little hints. He was trying this, trying that. That wasn't working. Okay, let me reset, do this. And then when that flurry came in, it's like it just feels like that uppercut just was like, as they say, an uppercut from the gods. It was just perfectly timed, and it caused the same type of reaction. So that's my thoughts when I say Povetkin-esque, not necessarily that it was executed in the same way. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, so very entertaining fight. Obviously, Jojak has come with the full intentions to win. He's a smaller guy, but he's built very, very solidly. And obviously, he comes out and he wobbles Billam's legs. But even though Billam does dip there, he never looks like he's out of, his mind is gone. Jojak does what you'd expect anybody to do, or what you should do. Learn a lesson, Kevin Lorena. When somebody dips like that, is you jump all over them and you try to see if you can take advantage of what just happened. But unfortunately, I don't think he ever really got anything on Chris Billam-Smith that made him have to sort of deviate from what he was planning to do, which was to slowly work himself into the fight, use his range, and then to start working on those hooks and uppercuts, because those are his ammo. He used them to great effect against Isaac Chamberlain. He used them to great effect against Richard Riakporhe. It's just a matter of will he find his timing and get those punches in on you? You've got to know if he starts teeing off with those hooks and uppercuts, you're in trouble. So, you know, I give credit to the guy who came. He tried a thing. He went on the offensive early, but he seemed to run out of other ideas, and that just played into Chris Billam-Smith's hands. There was no panic in his game. You know, he took his shots, and he just kept working away, prodding, finding his opportunities, and then taking advantage when they came up. And as the fight got into, you know, further rounds, he then became the dominant man and effectively took out his opponent with the greatest of combinations. Now, that definitely goes down as a KO of the year contender, because mainly the way in which the opponent goes down, you know, because he's literally out cold in midair, and then he kind of just sits as he falls to the floor. And obviously, by the time he hits the floor, he's already completely out. There's no need for a count. So it's a fantastic looking hook uppercut combination that takes him out. And, you know, we got to give the guys flowers for that particular finish. You know, it's a great finish against a credible foe. Obviously, it now, again, much like Dan Aziz, it kind of finishes his year really good for him. He's had a great year. And, you know, now we look forward to seeing what he's going to do in 23. Obviously, Richard Riakporhe was at ringside, asking to see if he could get that rematch. I'm not sure if Billam-Smith will want to do that, because that to me is a fight of the year contender, domestic wise, if they do get together again. I wouldn't want to say one way or the other who would win, because I don't really like to go against a guy who's beaten a guy once before. But I do like Richard Riakporhe. But I do think, you know, there's a lot to be said before you make a decision about who's going to win that rematch, should it take place. But outside of that, then obviously there was the mention of Jai Opetaia. Jai, if I'm not mistaken, Jai's surgery means he's out for at least 6 months, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure why they mentioned his name, because he's going to fight at least maybe once, at least maybe even twice, before Jai's back in the fray, ready to defend his world title.
Well, I mean, Jai Opetaia, I mean, they had that fight, I think that fight was April or May. So he had that surgery ages ago.
Okay.
Now,
Why did that seem like it was only June-ish or something?
I think it was before then.
Time is gone.
Because I remember I paid for that event. But I mean, I think he's just the highest ranked in the IBF, so I think that's just the way to go. And possibly they're looking at the champion who is like the biggest novice, so to speak, because he's obviously the champion the least amount of time, and he's got a double broken jaw, which may think that they might think that they've got you know, more of a chance in that one.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense.
Oh no, do you know what? You're right. It wasn't May. It was July.
Yeah, I thought it was closer, because it didn't seem that far away. So I would imagine Jai would be a little bit still in recovery in terms of his recuperation from his injuries, and therefore a fight wouldn't be, you know, something they'd be looking at until middle of 23. So that does leave the other champions, obviously Makabu, and who's the other guy? Yeah,
and Okoli.
Yeah. So let's see what they choose to do with Chris Billam-Smith. Obviously, Ben Shalom is, you know, very big into Chris. You know, it will be interesting with their approach to Lawrence Okoli, whether they would want to do that fight with Lawrence. Again, that would be a huge domestic fight in 23. Should it take place? Not sure how much longer Lawrence plans to keep his cruiserweight titles and his plans at that weight, because I have Heard that he does want to go up to heavyweight. So overall, very, very, very good fight. Very pleased with his performance. Well done, Chris Billam-Smith. So let's go into the chat, see what people are saying.
Hold on, before you do that, so you think that that was a controlled and measured performance by Chris?
I think overall, yeah, because yes, his opponent came early doors and brought a thunder at him. But what I noticed is Chris was able to avoid a lot of those big shots. He wasn't taking a great deal of shots. It wasn't like he was getting touched up regularly. My guy was having sporadic bits of success, but Chris was generally in good control of the way the fight was fought, the distance it was being fought at. And then, as I said, as the fight goes along, he finds his range, and he gets to open up on his own combinations inside.
Okay, we seldom agree on everything. That's definitely a point I disagree on. Just like Aobs has just put in the chat here, I don't think he looked that good. I think he looked leggy. I think he looked tired. I think he looked sluggish. I even think, to a degree, he looked slightly concussed, like prior to the fight starting. And that punch in the second round almost woke him up, because in the first one, even though I gave him the first round, he looked, again, he was slow to the punch. He was getting out jabbed. He was getting caught with the jab a lot. He had the longer reach and was making the shorter guy out jab him on the inside. He just looked very ponderous. Now again, that might be overtraining. It may be, he might have been ill. It could have been anything. He warmed into it and then started doing what he does best afterwards. But I don't feel like that's the fight that you need to have a war in, especially if the next one you're looking for is a title fight. And that seems to be one of the problems with Chris, is that he's having wars at the domestic and the almost European type level. So if you're having wars there, what are you gonna have left in the tank when it's time to step to the world stage? That's sort of my issue and my concern. Now, with regard to I've also, before we move on and you can sort of read out the quotes and the comments, there's one thing that I've kind of noticed, and I don't know if this is just me, so maybe someone in the chat can also say if they've seen it or not. But ever since Chris Billam-Smith went over to Sky, and he's not on no big long-term contract with them. He's on a 2-fight deal now. That was the first fight. He's got one more fight now before whatever happens with that contract. Before, he was on that 1-fight deal before. It seems like all the attention is now transferred over to him from Richard Riakporhe, who was their poster boy for the whole of the first half of 2022. And now it's almost like you get Richard in Bournemouth talking about, I'd like the rematch, bearing in mind that you beat him. So why would you be wanting the rematch that you won when you're supposed to be ahead of him in the pecking order? Like, why is that the next move? Unless they've told you, look, this is the only fight we can get you and the bag's gonna be nice. But outside of that, I'll beat you. I'm supposed to be the number one guy here. Why am I calling you out? That, to me, that don't really make much sense. And then you got the guy in the ring talking about he wants a world title, and you're talking about you want to fight him. So I don't know. Certain things just look like they're moving a bit funny at the moment, but maybe that's just me.
I like to give Boxer the benefit of the doubt in this particular scenario. They move funny anyway. I'm not the great. I do think Ben Shalom's a little bit of a shady guy, but you know what? I have to give him the credit for building a stable from zero. When you consider what he's had to deal with, jumping in into the boots of Eddie on Sky and then having to find fighters and doing what he's had to do, I'm gonna say 1 year down, tick. Good job, Ben. Well done. You've put on some good cards. You've entertained the public. There was a talk yesterday in our Undefeated podcast WhatsApp group about, where boxing is right now. And, as I said to Travis, I think there's just so much boxing being on offer this last year in 2022 that I don't see how you could say boxing under-delivered in 2022. Yes, we didn't get the big ones. We didn't get AJ Fury. We didn't get Spence Crawford. But we got so much else. And domestically, we had some crackers. And we had boxing every week. And I know another thing you're going to say, the zone, big letdown, asking people to pay money. Was the subscription really worth it based on what you got for the whole year?
I'll actually say compared and we can do this because we've got a little bit of time to kill. I agree with you in terms of we got a lot of what we didn't know we wanted until it came up. That's what I feel like we had this year. There was a lot of things none of us we didn't really know that, okay, that's what we wanted until it happened. They're like, oh, wow, yeah, that was good. But what Travis said in the chat, because I read the chat, he was right in the sense that we are looking at it from a perspective of just being a boxing fan. In terms of the big casual market, they didn't get the things that made them come back. And I agree with him.
I don't get that. There was so much boxing.
You're not a casual, so you wouldn't get it.
Can I also say, I didn't even mention Misfits, because for the casual fan, let's not forget, they were selling out arenas. Yeah. So if you want to consider boxing, and I know we didn't cover any of the Misfit boxings on here. Yeah. But when we talk about boxing, the overall sport, the casual had so much on offer in real life boxing, Misfits boxing.
No, because I'll tell you why. Because Misfits boxing isn't for casuals. Misfit boxing is specifically for that demographic of people that maybe then might transition over. The people that watch the Misfits, the people that are watching like KSI and all, they're not casual fans. They're fans of that person. They're fans of him from outside of the boxing world. That's a different thing. We're talking.
But are they not bringing eyes to the sport?
But that's not the same as a casual fan of boxing. That's a fan of KSI. Because if KSI wasn't on that event, they're not watching it for the other Misfits or whoever else has got their fan base. That's different. What we're talking about is like the big fights that make the general casuals talk about, and they're the same ones that will then have a big argument with you at work or in the room talking about, oh yeah, but did you see what he done to his? Like, you didn't get those comments and those conversations from just people that watch boxing on occasion, because the fights that they keep hearing were the biggest fights weren't happening. So I understand what Travis is saying, but I understand your point, and I agree in the sense that we got a lot of good stuff. But again, you look at things from a boxing perspective. I think you find it hard to look at it from outside of your lens of the sport that you love, as opposed to someone that maybe just likes to watch an event here and there. Like the Ben Eubank thing was a casual special. That's what the casuals wanted, and we didn't get hardly any of that throughout the year. So I agree with Travis on that point, but I see your point. But I'm trying to relay to you what he was saying in that chat. Okay, I think we've the real knowledge in the place, big up. And before we move on to the next one, let's see who else we got here. Nope, that's it. Please add me to the group, Victor. We'll see if we're allowed to do that.
No, I already responded.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, we don't control that. We don't have the admin privileges, so
anyway, so let's move on. We might come back to that subject at the end if we've got some time. So very quickly, we move on to a card that you brought my attention to, which took place in Paris.
France.
Yeah,
I don't think it was Paris, but it was France.
Okay, so I got the opportunity to look at both these fights that we're going to review, but my feed for the second one was not good. So I'm going to start off with the one that I saw, which was Solomon Sissoko
and Talani Mbenge.
Yeah, so here it goes. So first and foremost, some of you may not be familiar with these fighters, but I thought I'd put some footage on here because, as you can see, that is Suleiman Sissoko in the training gym, and he trains in with none other than Mr. Anthony Joshua. He's part of 258 management. Now, this was a WBC.
Yeah, I think the WBC Silver was on the line.
Silver, yeah. And this was an interesting fight. It pitted the Frenchman against who is Suleiman in the white shorts against Mbenge in the black shorts. As you can see, Mbenge, Suleiman, Sissoko, get it right. It's quite heavy-handed. So he, in certain parts, was able to rock Mbenge, but Mbenge was very game early on. You know, as you can see, he's firing off here. He's letting his hands go freely, and Mbenge was under a lot of pressure early doors. But then, as you can see there, some great shot selection, some pot shotting from Mbenge. Starts to get him into motion, and that lovely combination, even though he slips there after his own combination, that doesn't go down as a knockdown. But effectively, Sissoko starts to gain, ascendancy in the fight with his combinations, and effectively overwhelms his opponent with crisper, harder shots. And as the fight goes on, you can see that he's clearly going to be the victor as he's winning more of the later rounds and more of the fight than his opponent. But for those who haven't seen that fight, it is on YouTube. Again, like we like to do, we try to bring you boxing from wherever it is, and if we see something that's of interest, then we were going to talk about it. And Suleiman Sissoko, as I said, under 258 management, definitely one to keep your eye out for. I've actually seen a couple of his previous fights, and he is a very tasty fighter, somebody that I think, will be of interest over here when he starts fighting some of our own domestic opponents. What's your say?
Yeah, I mean, well, he's fought some of them already. He fought Conroy a little while back. I think it was on one of his own cards. Is it Liam Conroy? But yeah, he's so Suleiman Sissoko basically. I feel like he worked very well in that fight. Now the thing is, Talani Mbenge is actually the puncher of the two in that fight. So if you look at their box recs, you'll see that Mbenge had something like I think it was 19 or 20 KOs from the fights that he had. I could be slightly off on that, but I know the fact that he was the puncher and Sissoko was definitely more of the boxer. But I did predict that Sissoko would win this fight on points just based on the amateur pedigree and being able to control the distance and maybe just have a bit more speed and foot movement. And if you see sort of in some of the footage that you see here, that was basically everything. It was he was managing to slip shots, slightly just get out of the way with that little slight step back just when that punch is coming out, and then being able to punch in between the punches, just as you see it again there. He was always just slightly moving enough that Mbenge couldn't properly set his feet to really unload those heavy hammer shots that he does have and he does hold. His best opportunities were things like that when he was almost probing, doing a double and a triple probe with the jab just to try and get his way in to keep Sissoko's arms raised so that he can get himself into range. That's when he had his most amount of success. And he had to employ the almost pressure fighter-like tactic in the fight to gain the success that he had, even though he's more of a boxer puncher, and Sissoko is a bit more of a pure boxer in terms of their movement and their skills. But part of that is the reason that Sissoko was able to, again, the range and manage to survive, a lot of those exchanges that they had. So with that, I definitely think he was a justified winner, but it was a very close fight and it was a very entertaining fight for people who like to actually watch sort of boxing from all aspects. So yeah, that's my take on it. And if you haven't seen it, as Tony said, you can probably find it on YouTube, but also there's a couple, if anyone wants it, I've got a website that I normally get all my fights. Sometimes you get like the big live streams, and they always got all the fight replays and stuff. There's a website I use. I'll happily drop it in the chat for everyone to click on if you need to. But yeah, real good one overall. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay, so just a quick one. That Reece Jones thinks that Sissoko would be a good next opponent for Mikey McKinson. I think that would be a decent fight.
It'd be very strategical. Whether it would be entertaining, I don't know, but it would be good to watch from a technical perspective.
Cool. Were you guys impressed by this? It seemed like an underwhelming performance, second in a row after that was where the junior fight, in my opinion. No, I thought it was an all right performance. I wouldn't say
impressed. I would just say that I liked some of what I saw, and I liked what he done ultimately to win the fight. He did just enough to win, but sometimes that's all you need, and that shows the levels when you can do just enough and still kind of be safe and fairly clean faced afterwards and not be in a war. So
yeah, and he's a fighter on the up. You're gonna get tests that you're gonna have to work out what to do, and so it doesn't look great in the early rounds. And we mentioned that when talking about Chris Billam-Smith earlier. So again, this is a guy who I think he's worked himself out into that fight. I like guys who have the capability to change something in the middle of a fight, and that change makes them become more effective at what they do. I like guys who can listen to instruction in their corner, and I'm sure you do too, Maestro, who can go out and effect a game plan, and when told to revert to a different game plan, can switch it like that. And there are not many guys like that. Smallsy, how you doing, Smallsy? Hope you're well down under. McKinson versus Avanesian should happen next year. I believe McKinson is a free agent now. I think you're right there, sir. So that would be an interesting fight. Avanesian at this stage, would represent a very, very tough opponent for Mikey McKinson. But you know what? That welterweight division is stacked domestically, stacked internationally. So there are lots of guys out there that I think we could talk about. How would McKinson do against Avanesian? At this stage, I would still favour Avanesian. What do you think?
If it happens, I'll talk about it. Come, let's move on.
Okay, no problem. Right, so the other fight on that card was a fight that I was finding it difficult to watch because the quality of the stream wasn't great. So I've taken a bit of what I could, and it featured Mbili versus Vaughn Alexander.
Yeah, Christian Mbili versus Vaughn Alexander. So I'll take this one. Right. So for those who don't know Christian Mbili, he is also a French fighter from I can't remember what his background is, but what I will say is Mbili is one of the hardest punchers in that super middleweight division. He's very crude in his style at the moment. Like he's sort of, he uses pendulum motion and sort of quick steps inwards to try and get his way into range. He doesn't have a great jab. He's not really good at setting things up at the moment. He's not very he's not able to hide his shots, but what he does do is punch extremely hard with both hands. His straight right is a very deadly sort of a very deadly weapon. But if he's what I would say about this particular fight, he was against someone who's basically is a big strong person who's used to tucking up and having a tight guard, and he just wasn't able to find the ways to the safe entries in between his guard, in between both this one and when he had his arms out here, hence why a lot of things was getting taken on the gloves. He wasn't really able to unload those those cannon like shots that he's done in the past. He has to work on, again, setting certain traps or throwing feints and then throwing shots behind the feint so that his opponents can't see them coming, especially opponents that don't necessarily move in front of him. But that being said, I mean, Vaughan Alexander is a very well-schooled guy, and sort of a tough, rugged guy. So he's not going to be an easy night's work for anyone. He definitely made Mobili work for the victory, and that's a good thing in his mind, because he actually needs those rounds. He needs those learning fights and understanding that power isn't everything and power doesn't always work. But yeah, that's I liked watching the fight from just a casual perspective. It wasn't a hugely technical fight in that sense. It was literally just, I'm going to try and punch through your arms and I want to see if you can take it, and they both essentially done the same thing. So it just kind of made it a bit of an entertaining fight. It wasn't one of his greatest performances, but he's definitely one of the threats at 168. He may not ever be a world title winner, but he'll be a nightmare fight for most people.
Okay. So I'm not going to say much about the fight. As I said, the quality wasn't great, but from what I saw, the pendulum style without the jab reminds me of who does it remind me of? A fighter of old. Sugar Ray Leonard fought in. Oh my gosh. Who did Sugar Ray Leonard win his world title at light middleweight from?
Light middle.
Yeah. Damn.
Off of my head, no, I don't.
Okay, the real knowledge is going to chip in on with the answer on this one any second, because this is the guy who I thought that Chris Mobili looks most like. It's a style that I see with quite a few African fighters. He's heavily muscular, in that, and I think he's maybe overtly muscular to the point that he doesn't have a nice loose language style about his approach in the ring. And that, to me, can only take you so far. Yeah, you've got great power in your shots, great knockout record so far, but there comes a point when you're going to fight a boxer, an out-and-out boxing, clinician, and you won't be able to deal with that because your style is too rigid to deal with that. We saw that with Hagler against Robert Mugabe, when Mugabe was, that killer, but his footwork was atrocious. Ayub Kalule, thank you very much, Danny. Danny, Fight Fan TV, guys. If you haven't followed him, get onto that channel because he's a great source of boxing knowledge. So yeah, Ayub Kalule, definitely. Chris and Billy reminds me a hell of a lot of that fighter from old. I am showing my age. Thank you very much, Master Aficionado.
All right, let's move on if you haven't got anything else to say about that one.
Nope. Okay. So we move on to the card in Canada, because I'm going to leave the big one to the end. Now, I'm going to ask you to kindly tell us more about this one because you can give more depth to these two fighters. But this was a bit of a humdinger. Mary Spencer against Femke Hermans. Here you go.
Yeah, so Mary Spencer, very highly touted, I guess, prospect, realistically, even though she's got a very deep amateur background. only actually lost in the amateurs, I believe, to Clarissa Shields. So she was one of those, highly schooled people. However, in this particular fight, she looked awful. She'd been running through all of her previous opponents. She had 7 fights, 5 knockouts, and was, she was just plowing through everyone. And I guess the team maybe thought that Femke would have been similar to like Cynthia Lozano or even Chris Namas, in they won't have to necessarily train too hard for her. But Femke being a former world champion, she's not just any girl. Yes, Clarissa Shields beat her easily, and Savannah Marshall brutally knocked her out, but she doesn't just lose to any and everyone. So I think either they stepped in too soon, maybe believed the hype a bit too much, and didn't work on the fundamentals and didn't actually plan a game plan for Femke. And yeah, Mary was just kind of found wanting in there. The team didn't really know how to adjust. I think that she was a bit gassed from sort of the second round onwards, because she just wasn't moving like she normally moves. She was getting caught with straight rights, left hooks. Femke Hermans would even switch it in, which she doesn't often do, but she felt comfortable enough to switch it from southpaw to orthodox, back to southpaw, and then back to orthodox again. She just basically outworked her, out hustled her. I think she hurt her early, and Mary just couldn't get into her rhythm. So I think she busted a lot of people's accumulators last weekend. So she's gonna have to make amends for that. I still feel that she'll do well. The only problem is because she literally turned 38 last week. Coming into the pro game at those ages doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have success. I mean, we've seen Nina Hughes do it at 39, busting 40, winning a world title in her 4th pro fight. But those deep amateur backgrounds, maybe, sometimes you just don't transition out properly. And sometimes it's just a case of you get old overnight. We need to see what Mary Spencer does in her very next fight to be able to determine what kind of run she was going to have in that super middleweight division. Because she said that she only turned pro to rematch Clarissa Shields. That's not going to happen anytime soon, not based on obviously what happened over the weekend. And also with regards to before, she was going to be a huge problem for Natasha Jonas and Terry Harper. But now that she's lost that fight, she's lost her ranking spots as well. So they're not going to be in any hurry or under any pressure from any of the sanctioning bodies to have to face her anytime soon either. So she might have a bit of a long rebuild road. But that doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Again, it all depends on what the next fight looks like, and if they now will pay the money for the necessary fighters to get her back into a mandatory type position. But yeah, it will be interesting. And again, it was a very lackluster performance. There's not really much else I can say. I thought she was going to run through Femke just because Femke doesn't move her head, doesn't really move around, is just a sitting target. But Femke told no, like, if we gonna have this fight, you best be ready for the war. And Mary wasn't on this occasion.
Yeah, so I can only add to that in that, I thought this was such a passive performance from Mary Spencer, because when I consider how aggressive she's been in her previous fights, look, she's been totally dominating in all of her previous fights, at least the ones that I've seen, and I've seen a few now. That this looked like, it could be a stoppage win for Mary Spencer if she turns it on, because obviously we've seen Femke hurt in previous fights, but Spencer was so passive that literally Femke was made to look like, she was the one with, the massive pedigree. Despite being a bit of an awkward puncher and being very awkward in her boxing stance, she still was effective at, hitting at will. When we look at the highlight, you see some of the punches are coming from very weird angles. She steps through, she's off balancing slightly when she throws some of her punches. But you know what? hard work wins when talent doesn't work hard enough, and that was the scenario of that particular fight. Because to me, Spencer just doesn't work hard enough. She needed to, step up gears, and she didn't go through them. She didn't get in. She didn't get out of second gear, and Hermans was allowed to basically dominate and dictate the fight with her gangly style. Somewhat reminiscent, although not exactly the same as Delphine Passoon. So that's my take on that. Let's move on. The last fight of the night, which is Frank Martin versus what's his first name? Michel Ali Rivera. I'll let you go ahead with this one too.
Okay, so I mean, in this fight, I got my prediction wrong on this one. A lot of people said that Frank Martin would win, and I knew he was the favorite, but I felt like Michel Rivera had a bit more of the boxing skills. Also, I felt that he just had the slightly better competition in terms of like who he's faced, and I thought that his boxing would sort of supersede the boxer puncher based style of Frank Martin. But like Michel Rivera had absolutely no answer for that southpaw stance, which is very weird because he's trained by Herman Caicedo, who trains, Luis Ortiz. And Luis Ortiz has been southpaw from day one. So the fact that in this entire fight, Michel Rivera never once move to his left hand side to try and get himself on the outside of Frank Martin's foot, or to get away from his lead, his backhand. A lot of it just didn't really. It just didn't look like a performance like he knew what he was doing. He knew how to fight a southpaw. If you look here, everything he does is moving to the right, moving to the right, moving into the power hands. Not one time does he move to the left to get away from it, or to get his foot on the outside to try and set up his own work. His whole his jab hand was being nullified constantly by Martin, who was basically keeping his chin tucked behind his shoulder and using his lead hand to parry down Michel Rivera's hand very easily at times. And the way he was getting his backhand into range was masterful almost. He was exploding both inside the pocket to get into range, and then he was exploding outside of it to not get hit on the exit as well. It was just a very controlled and a dominant performance. The good thing is Michel Rivera is 24. Frank Martin is 28. So Michel's got plenty of years to go back and work on this and sort of get back to basics. But me personally, I wouldn't want to see him with Herman Caicedo anymore. I don't really think he's a great trainer anyway. And the fact that your biggest star in your gym is a southpaw, and you can't teach this guy how to fight a southpaw, to me is criminal. Not able to give him any instructions to change up what's going on in that ring. Derek James, yes, he is the superior trainer of the two, but you must at least be able to have some way to tell your guy, who's a very talented boxer, to box. Tell him how to create those angles. Tell him how to offset Martin's movements. Tell him to move to his left hand side, which he never did once in the whole fight. I don't understand just how that game plan was concocted, and they thought it was going to work. But that being said, big up to Frank the Ghost Martin, because again, he moves on, and there's big things in his future. He's already made it known. Basically, he's going to fight Rolly Romero next. But that'll be an interesting fight for as long as it lasts. It'll be fun at least. What did you think of the fight watching it?
Okay, so wanted to pick apart a couple of things. First and foremost, before I start playing it, is when you take on the moniker of the late great Muhammad Ali, you style your shorts, your shoes, your hair around a man who has done so much in the game. You really need to come a little bit better with your technique. And the first thing is, the first clip I pick up is his jab. Now, considering Ali is literally one of the greatest of jabbers in the history of the game, you kind of think like, are you watching Muhammad Ali at all? Because watch this clip. You will see his feet move nowhere. He literally stands and throws the jab and throws the jab and throws the jab. And his feet move nowhere. Let's go. And it's just amazing to me that you study styles and you think, okay, my job as a trainer is to look at fighters, see what they do well. And even today at training, look, jab, jab. I'm not moving my feet. You know, it's literally, I can't hit the guy if I don't move my feet to my opponent. And he did it all night long. And I was like, where is this guy getting his tuition from? Because if I watch Muhammad Ali, at the bare minimum, I can watch no other fighter on the planet, I will see that that lead jab is not good. And this is another example. This knockdown, he throws the lead jab, he doesn't come in with his foot. Look, jab, no footwork, bum. He just walked straight into the backhand for Frank Martin. And it's just literally the simple rudimentaries of boxing that you have to look at that say, that's why you're not at this stage someone I consider to be capable of taking up the mantle of a name like Muhammad Ali. You know, as you mentioned before, Base, you know, he didn't work out the southpaw at all throughout the whole 12 rounds. And it's worrying, you know, because you kind of think, well, again, I like to mention this about fighters. At some point in time, you're losing a fight, you've got dropped, you need to change something about the way this fight is going. At some point in time, my corner has to give me a slap round the face, chuck the water in my face and say, listen, man, you're 8 rounds down and you lost a round to a 10-8. You're going to need to do something different here. And not once did my man deviate to the point where I'm going, let's see what he's going to do this round to change things. And as you said, it could be his corner work. That maybe they're just not strong enough in there to turn around and say, look, you're down. You need to do something. And I mention this quite often about good fighters can change something in a fight, which was why last week when we talked about Terence Crawford, you know, we saw master at work, the ability to work out a fighter and then just totally obliterate that fighter with adjustments in fight. And unfortunately, Michelle Ali Rivera, my guy, he got a lot of work to do. But he looks a nice kid. You know, I would love to train a guy like that because I saw something in there that says he could be something, but he needs a new trainer probably because he needs to learn a new thing about distance control. And we talk about this so often between us. You know, the guy who controls distance in a fight more often than not is going to be the guy who wins the fight. And Frank Martin did a number on him in that regard. His distance control was exemplary. And I look forward to seeing where Frank goes next.
No response to that. I agree. Like I said, Herman Casado, he needs to, yeah. I haven't liked him. I've never liked him. But even just looking at the way he was throwing that jab, all I could see was Luis Ortiz. And again, it was just that slow, ponderous, almost lunging into the jab type situation. Like yeah. Anyway, I'm not here to bash anyone, but I want him with a new trainer as well.
So there's a load of comments in the chat. So let me try and find them very quickly. Season's greetings to you, Anjade Francis. Rivera looks like Julian Jackson. Facially, absolutely, I agree. Frank Martin is very good, says Reece Jones. I wouldn't call it the Hawk haircut. If I'm thinking you're talking about Aaron Pryor, the Hawk, I would say no, not the same. Rivera is a good conventional boxer, but was way too basic in this fight. Rivera needed to pick his feet up. Just what I said. His feet mean that he's not able to adjust distance in the right way. I can see them making Pitbull Cruz fight Martin next. Easy in-house PBC fight to make. Maybe. Pitbull versus Martin is fire. I so wanted Rivera to be a mini Ali. Yeah, well, that's not going to happen for a while. Rolly is going to 140. Yes, he is. Shakur wants that Martin smoke, though. Shakur ain't big enough. Not right now. He needs to concentrate on what he's doing. Ali had no idea how to fight a lefty. Watched his fight, was painful. He needs to stop calling himself Ali immediately.
Yeah, we had quite a few of these on the thing already. I was putting them up while you were talking, so
okay.
Right. Well, I think that's pretty much all we've got. So, have you got any closing words?
What a year it has been. Since inception with our first show through to year end. It's been a pleasure, I may say, working with you, Mr. BaseDaKID. To the fans who we have met through the year at various venues, who we continue to interact with on our pod. Massive gratitude to you all. Whether you celebrate Christmas or not, happy Kwanzaa, season's greetings. Hope you and your families are well. And enjoy what little rest you may have over the period. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your support. Look forward to 2023. I hope that some of the fights that we didn't get in 22 will come forward in 23. I'm already excited to see what we get in 23 because I totally believe that boxing is on a high. I really do. Despite the naysayers, I really enjoyed 22. I went to some fantastic fights, both live and on TV. I watched some fights. I hope to be able to go to more of those type fights and greater. So that's me. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Well, look, I want to thank everyone who does, who tunes in, week out. Being loyal and sort of sticking by, even when we've had our bit of our teething problems, tough patches. Even now, we're still going through little hiccups here and there, but you still stay and you still interact in the chat and make these Tuesday evenings worthwhile. Because trust me, there's nothing worse than being on the stream knowing that it's dead with no interaction and we don't really know what we're doing to bounce off of each other as well. So yeah, thank you for helping us grow through that. Everyone who watches the actual channel themselves, just naturally, Monday Night Smoke, the pod, so from the rest of the team, KG, Travis J, even October Red when she makes her special guest appearances. We're all one big team, one big family. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We may, this is not really confirmed, so don't quote us. There may potentially be something next week, and that depends on if I can get a few things sorted. But otherwise, we will see you in the new year. We will let you know basically what's going on. But as Tony said, yeah, look, happy holidays for everyone that encompasses everything, just in case. Have a great new year. We will be back on the other side. And for those of you, like if you look at the ticker down below, that my details is down there. I'm going to be doing my best of starting from tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to have prospect of the year, male and female. and then I think Friday will be performance of the year, and then I might miss out the weekend, or I might do Saturday, and then it will all basically culminate to my fight of the year, which will be my very last video, and then obviously I'll have my fighters of the year. I'll have a male and a female one for that as well. But yeah, so if you haven't, tune into mine. Base the Kid, the hardcore casual. Help subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I want to get those subscribers up this year. I know that some of you are watching probably haven't, so yeah, subscribe to that. And now if you look, you'll see Tony's stuff just below. Follow him on Twitter, follow him on Instagram and everywhere else. Oh, hold on, just before we go, we got one. Okay, Magnificent Jafar, quick question, guys. Prime Holyfield or Marvin Hagler? Are you talking about a fight between the two? Because
Ooh. That's naughty. That's naughty.
I mean, I'm sorry, the size tells me that Holyfield takes that one.
No, this has got to be a cat. This has got to be. This ain't even a catch weight, is it? This
I
is
don't
like.
know. He hasn't said. He just said Prime Holyfield or Marvin Hagler. So he hasn't given us any stipulations there.
So if anybody who follows me knows me, up there on my shelf of glory, I've got 5 Holyfield programs. Evander Holyfield was my guy. Saw him 5 times live, including the winning the world title against Buster Douglas. You know, from his Olympic days, just a guy that I really, really idolized. The fights against Dwight Muhammad Qawi, all-time classics for me. The trilogy with Riddick Bowe, the fights against Lewis and Tyson. You know, it's just so many great fights in that guy's, you know, record that he, to me, is definitely right up there. But Marvin Hagler, wow. Marvin
You know, we
Hagler.
might have to. This might have to be something we actually discuss on one of those shows when we ain't really got
Wow.
nothing to do.
So on that wall of fame is Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali knocking out Sonny Liston. The third fight is Marvin Hagler against Tommy Hearns. And so, yeah, you can see what reverence Evander Holyfield and Marvin Hagler have. Signed autograph Marvin Hagler picture right there.
Right. Hold on, one second. The real knowledge, just to answer that question real quick. Kazuto Ryoka, because that is obviously New Year's Eve, we will probably do that in the new year. So that first week of January, we will talk about that one there. But yeah, it won't take place before the next show is supposed to happen, so it probably won't be that one. But we'll see where we go. Anyway, yeah, we can eulogize about these people in another time. I got stuff to do, Tony. You got stuff to do. So without that,
you see, when you mention 2 of my idols,
yeah,
you can get me so emotional.
We're gonna do it time. I promise you, we're gonna have that discussion. But for now, people, salute. Have a great Christmas and New Year. Happy holidays, Kwanzaa, all that good stuff. We're out, and we'll catch you later. Take care.
Take care, guys.